Andrew Russell and, I'm not sure which order, Andrew Russell first and then David Walker.
Thank you. Well, it's great to have the opportunity to speak. I'm speaking really, giving my own take as a member of the EGC on looking back at the history of how we've thought about engagement and communication with the participants and with the public over the last few years. And then David will be looking perhaps more widely and more at the future. So I've got 6 minutes to rattle through a bit of history with you. The EGC, of course, has a duty to advise on the interests of participants and the public and act as the independent guardian of the EGF, the framework. And the framework, as Andrew just pointed out, refers specifically to the duty to listen to participants. That's for the UK Biobank, to listen to participants. Participants have, of course, given a general consent rather than a specific informed consent. And so this broad consent does entail keeping participants informed and listening to them and engaging with them on potentially controversial issues. And we've heard from Andrew how this is going on, how it's been going on, and how it's evolved over the last few years. The question really is the level and the resource that should go into this as a very relevant and perhaps increasingly important aspect of the work of the UK Biobank. To inform ourselves as the EGC about something about public views and participant views, 6 meetings were organised and hosted by the EGC in major cities between 2005 and 2010. And members of the public were invited to attend, participants attended, and were able to raise questions and learn more about the Biobank. This was a small thing, really, in numerical terms. About 50 people on average attended each meeting, between 30 and 70. And in fact, qualitatively, they were very interesting, but they weren't directly representative of the views of the 500,000 participants overall. But it was, of course, very useful for the EGC to inform ourselves of views and concerns. These meetings were discontinued after the 2010 review by the funders when it was decided that this kind of engagement was primarily a UKB responsibility, a UK Biobank responsibility, rather than the EGC itself. But the EGC is kept informed about interactions with the public and participants through receiving, mainly from Andrew and from other members of staff of the Biobank, biannual reports from UKB with details about issues which arise. We believe there's a high level of trust and confidence by participants in the UK Biobank generally, and that the strong altruistic motive which encouraged people to get linked into it at first still continues and still exists among participants. But on societal views about involvement, there does appear to be a gradual shift towards an expectation of fuller involvement by research participants generally. And this perhaps parallels patients' wishes in healthcare to be more involved with healthcare decisions which affect them. Looking then at some models of engagement and how might UK Biobank engage with the public and with participants, the EGC has encouraged the UK Biobank to regard engagement as an ongoing process which could take a variety of forms over time. To examine different methods, we hosted a workshop in 2009 entitled Involving Publics in Biobank Research and Governance, and some of you may have been at that meeting. And essentially this looked at 4 main models, and I'll quickly run through these. I can't describe them here in any detail. The first one was the consultative panel of appointed participants, perhaps 100 or so in all, which would not, of course, be strictly representative of the 500,000 participants, but it would be a useful sounding board for issues and concerns. The second was called a shareholder model, and essentially this involved the democratic election of representatives from the participant body into key groups within the management of UK Biobank. This was felt to be by many people to be impractical on the scale of a national big biobank, and perhaps not justified in terms of the resources and the management time that it would take to set it up and run it. The third model was PPI, or patient and public involvement, as practiced in the Department of Health in this country and through the NIHR, where a small number of participant or public members are embedded within policy-making structures within our Department of Health and within the National Institute for Health Research. This is obviously a small number of people, and the question has to be asked, is it representative and is it real engagement with the public or with participants? And the fourth model was called citizens' inquiries, and this proposes participant and public involvement in deliberative initiatives on particular topics sequentially through time, and would involve probably formal debates at meetings, as well as virtual meetings and panels which could also take place, increasingly in new forms. So the workshop was aimed at seeking ideas and making suggestions. No specific recommendations were made by the EGC to UK Biobank on how to go forward. The ongoing process should no doubt take a variety of forms at different times, including the use of social media and meetings and presentations to which participants and the public are invited. But now that UK Biobank is in the research phase with more detail available on the current and proposed research and published results, as we've heard, increasingly appearing, the public interest and participant interest is likely to be stimulated. To summarise then, reasons to take further steps in public and participant engagement include the principle of respecting partnership with the participants. It demonstrates accountability in the use of public funds. It improves the capacity to gauge public opinion on key issues, and it may flag up new concerns and debates. And it recognises, practically, we've heard this from a number of speakers, that participants are a depletable resource, and if they could come to feel, if they were not engaged properly, that their involvement was not valued. Reasons to limit engagement primarily include cost, both in direct costs and in diversion of management time. Some have also felt that it could encourage vocal minorities to raise marginal issues, and this might distract from the primary function of enabling research. But none of these latter points perhaps is a reason not to engage actively with the public and with participants. Whether that is the job of the UK Biobank management or of the EGC itself remains to be seen, but the EGC stands ready to contribute to these efforts and to help, and of course is always open to comments from the public and from participants. So I think my colleague David is going to talk now a bit more about the future and more widely. Thank you.